already has social media. She's strong on it. She's got Facebook, Instagram. She even got a Twitter. I'm not arguing the need for social media. I'm just saying this type of creation, this position, is merely meant to boost her status, her cred, if you will, for re-election. That's it. I understand the need for social media. Hello, we're on social media. 742, I wanted to bring Speaker Therese Terlaje, and I just want to start by saying I think it's just egregious that the digital engagement manager just hired at Adeloop makes more than the senators. How the hell do you... That's... Sorry, no offense, Madam Speaker, but that just is like, oh boy. You're in the wrong line of work, Madam Speaker.
Trust me, I think about that sometimes.
I'm sure you do.
How's your Twitter game, Madam Speaker?
Yeah, how's your Twitter? Maybe you should put
not
in
so good, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't really see you on Twitter.
I like to read Twitter. There's some very clever comments there.
Right. It's 7:43. So, Speaker, of course, we bring you on every other Wednesday to kind of give us an update. And I know that a lot of people, the conversation, I think, since the voting has been on this public health emergency bill. Man, forgive me because I didn't, I'll just be honest, I didn't pay attention on the voting. But how did you vote on it? And then why? And then what did you think of the outcome and just the way forward for that? Because you're the health chair. And this bill deals it's public health emergency bill, right? So go ahead.
So you're talking about Bill 11,
yes,
right?
Ma'am.
And that's the one that says it changes the existing chapter. I voted yes, by the way. So
Okay.
It changes the existing Chapter 19 law that was passed by previous legislatures. And that law gave the governor power to, declare an emergency for 30 days. And then to extend that emergency for 30 days and to continue to do that. So the bill that we just passed allows the governor to declare an emergency for 90 days. So they extended that period, and then it allows the governor to extend after 90 days, after 3 months, for another 30 days with the consensus of the legislature. And that's the different part that all the objection that you're hearing is over. It's like for me, I voted yes because there's three things that were very important to me. One is, the governor has Organic Act powers. This bill does nothing to affect her Organic Act powers to declare an emergency like every other governor has used in emergencies. It does nothing to affect her Organic Act powers to take care of the health and safety of the people of Guam. It does nothing to affect her Organic Act powers to invoke quarantine and isolation when there's some disease that is, affecting the people of Guam. Those are very, very clear in the Organic Act. This bill that was passed only affects, and it doesn't affect any of the agencies' powers that have been given by statute. It doesn't affect any of the other governors' powers that are given by law. It only affects one law, and that's Chapter 19, the Health Emergencies Act. And it doesn't take away any powers in that Health Emergency Act. For example, the Public Health Authority still has the superpowers that it was given in that act. The governor still has the superpowers to waive all laws, licensing regulations, rules and regulations. All of that power is still intact. The only thing that has changed by this bill would be that after 90 days, after 3 months, the legislature should be brought in. They should be apprised of the situation. Are we still in an emergency after 3 months? Can you explain that to us? Can you, just get confirmation after 3 months as to the need to invoke the Chapter 19 superpowers, meaning at that point, after 3 months, do we still agree that the governor should invoke all the powers in Chapter 19? And like I said, it doesn't affect her Organic Act powers, on the other side. So this is a law that is very similar to other states. And so every state has, not every state, but most states have similar laws, and they tell the time of how long a governor can declare an emergency without getting the legislature's consensus. And so for many of them, it's 30 days. For some of them, it's even less. And we gave 90 days. So yeah, so for other states, I've seen 15 days, I've seen 5, I've seen after 2 days, you've got to call the legislature into session and, and discuss it. So I just think when we are in such an emergency that goes on for longer than 3 months, that's exactly the time when you want the legislature to be all hands on deck. You want them to do their job. You want them to be involved and to ensure that when we are waiving laws, that's the superpower in Chapter 19. And when we are going to invoke that, I think by all means, as representatives of the people of Guam, that's exactly when the legislature should say yes or no. And that's all they say. They don't say this is what public health is going to do. None of that. They say yes or no. Are we in an emergency?
Right.
You know, can you declare an emergency according to the statute? And Chris, you know, we've seen so many emergencies on Guam, and I've never seen a legislature, you know, impede governor's efforts in an emergency. I've only seen them try to help. So, you know, I'm very confident that this is something that is going to help the people of Guam, and that's what I'm looking at when I voted on this bill.
Right, Speaker.
If you see, you know, the governor was by law that we overrode last year, mandated to report on the $117 million in CARES spending. You know, we haven't received a final report on that. It was supposed to be a monthly report. We received 2 reports, and we're looking at a governor now who might receive $661 million. And if that's true, I especially think the legislature, you know, better be all hands on deck and make sure that they do everything in their power to ensure that the people of Guam who need help the most are going to be the people of Guam who are served the most. And it's an unprecedented amount of money that's given to one governor. It's an unprecedented power that has been invoked by a governor. And so while I have utmost respect for the actual response that Guam has had in this pandemic, for all the frontliners, public health, the hospital, and the governor, her efforts, she's been bold. And I told her I absolutely respect that. But I am also a representative of the legislature. I'm a representative of the people of Guam, and I think you need to bring the people of Guam along when you are going to waive all other kinds of laws. And otherwise the legislature, going to go in there and start, I think taking away powers in this Chapter 19, and I don't think it needs to do that. I think it's a simple yes or no. Are we still in a state of emergency? Can you lay out why, in public?
Yeah, Speaker. I mean, so much of this, like,
transparency issue.
Right. So much of this response against this bill has been just so heavy-handed, and I feel like a lot of people have got caught up in this blame game. And I mean, our friend Glenn on the comments, I think it just really is so simple. His comment is here, it all boils down to basic checks and balances between executive and legislative branch of government. And I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, but you guys failed you tried though, and I get it with the transparency bills and all that, but you're just not checking the governor in a way that you guys should be able to. I mean, you pass a law that she's got to report monthly the CARES Act expenditures. They do it twice and then nothing. And nothing today. We don't know where the money's going. She's anticipating, you're right, hundreds of millions of dollars coming in. And basically, if we look at how the CARES Act money was handled, the precedent has been set that the legislature has no business sticking their nose into how the governor spends this money, because she said you guys don't have the authority to appropriate it. But I want to go back to what the governor said in the press conference. And one of her arguments against this bill was she said, we all know how quickly the legislature cannot act. And so that was one of the arguments, was that, hey, in emergency, things happen fast. And, to get all you senators together, it's like, got one over here in Mongmong, the other one's in Molesto, and it's going to take a long I mean, I could see kind of through that argument, but how would you respond to that point?
Well, again, Chris, we're talking about after 3 months of being in an emergency, if she wants to renew, then the legislature, gets involved on a yes or no. That's it. And I cannot imagine, unless the senators are asleep, and they're not paying attention at all, that they're not trying to keep themselves informed, or that the governor has failed to keep anyone informed. And I haven't seen that. So I can't see why it would take any longer than an hour to convince them that we are still in an emergency. And you only need to convince 8 out of 15 senators. And if a governor cannot convince 8 out of 15 senators that we are in an emergency, especially in this case, then maybe there's something very wrong, right? And so I just can't see that. That seems a little bit silly to me, that the legislature can't act. The legislature can call itself into emergency session whenever it wants. It can act, and all it takes is it takes communication. Really, that's it. And so either we have a failed communication system, or we ensure that we have one that's going to work. I can't see any senator saying I'm not going to come to work.
I know, but Madam Speaker, obviously in the last term, the 35th Guam legislature, it was a whole different animal, because you had Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes, and I'm not trying to compare you guys, but it is what it is. I mean, she is beholden to the governor, and I feel like there was this, maybe it didn't even need to be communicated that, hey, I'm leading this, you guys stay out of the way. And there were people who were complaining that you guys didn't get called into emergency session soon enough. So are you kind of trying to say that now that, I mean, not even now, but just in your position where you're at now, that you would act quickly, that it would be different?
I think anyone would. And in fact, Speaker Munoz Barnes, she did call us into special emergency sessions several times, in fact, to deal with different types of laws that were being waived, or that we wanted to, the governor wanted to have special powers on. Remember the roadblocks, the curfews, all of those things. But no, I can't see why anyone in my position as Speaker, and those before me, anyone after me, that they aren't going to hesitate at all to bring themselves into session when it is necessary for the people of Guam. I can't see that. In fact, I've seen the opposite. I've seen they're very willing to act quickly, drop everything when called into session.
Obviously, the governor is going to veto this, and it passed. Was it 8-7?
Yes, 8-7.
And so, is this the end of the line for this? Do you think, is there any chance of a? I don't know, it's not your bill, but I know you know things. Is there any chance of an override?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you, there's a heavy lobbying going on, and not just lobbying, but I know you heard, the directors on the radio yesterday. But,
oh, they were calling me to come on, and they were like, "Can we go on and just take a crap on this bill?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, come on. I got toilet paper."
And I appreciate them and their efforts, but for me, it's like that argument is nowhere near this bill. This bill doesn't affect their powers at all to do what they need to do at the hospital, to do what they need to do at public health. In fact, this bill preserves that public health authority, and it's a super authority. It's huge.
Yeah.
And nothing in this bill touches that. It touches the yes or no, are we in an emergency? And it doesn't even touch the governor's superpower. And so that's why, all these arguments about, oh, you're going to stymie our response. Wrong. I think that's wrong, Chris. And I mean, I know it's wrong. And in fact, what I think is what we've seen in this pandemic. If you can bring the legislature along, if you can convince them we're in an emergency and we need to ignore procurement laws, we need to ignore open government laws, we need to ignore all other laws, that you need to invoke that power right now because that's the type of emergency we are having, then you will have, I think, by convincing the legislature of that, brought the people along in one fell swoop, because it's just reasonable. People are reasonable. The legislature is going to act in the best interest of all.
Right.
I believe.
I wanted to ask, do you have an update on the investigation with public health and the nurses and the whole thing with the quarantine and the alleged time falsification and all that?
Well, I hate to give, I have a lot of bad news today. So the bad news in that one is no, I don't have any report from the director. In fact, the update I received was that they're still looking into it. I continue to receive calls from nurses who are assigned to quarantine, who are saying that it looks to them like the ones who were, alleged to have, committed fraud on their timesheets, by doing things while they were on duty, or poor management, that they have been just transferred, just moved around, and that so they have a different supervisor up there, and I think that's good. But this moving around people without getting to the bottom of the issue, I don't support that. And I told the director this, and he keeps saying he's waiting for is it somebody at DOA to do something with the timesheets, and so unfortunately I don't have their full response on it yet, and I need that in order to respond myself. However, I do continue to receive complaints, and they're very, very concerning to me. That I don't think it should be something swept under the rug. I think it should be dealt with. I don't want it to be perpetuated. I think it's had an effect on the morale already. I can tell from the calls that I'm receiving, and that's very important. These are our frontliners, and their morale, I think, should be one of our biggest concerns.
So, Madam Speaker, would you say that there's been because when this kind of first came out, I know that public health was really dismissive about it. They were, it was like, oh, it's anonymous, oh, it's whatever. And now it kind of seems like the wheels fell off and you're getting calls. And I don't know. I mean, it kind of looks like maybe they're stonewalling or delaying. But at what point do you just say, hey, you know what? Enough of this. Let's go do an oversight.
Well, I'm at that point already, Chris, to be honest with you. And I, got an update yesterday that it's not done yet. We, actually like no news. That was really bad, because you're right. This has been going on since February 17th when they sent them a follow-up letter. They've, I think since January, in fact, that they, promised to give us a written response. So no, I think we're done waiting. We're going to have to move on with that. But my concern is that, like when you first asked me about this, we have these people in the front lines doing such good work, and then to detract from their good work with, this type of thing going on, I just think it would be in their best interest at public health to swiftly address this, to make sure that everybody knows immediately on the front lines that, no, we're taking care of you. We're going to make sure that this type of thing, that it's fair, that you're working all these hours, and that, but everybody's pulling their fair share. And I think that's really what they want to know. And they want to know that if somebody's done something wrong, that they're going to be held accountable, and not just, transferred someplace else and continue to receive benefits.
I did want to ask about the vaccination. We had kind of asked Senator Rajal, and I know there was an editorial that was in another media. Basically, it was like, why did the senators get the vaccine ahead of, more essential workers who probably deal with the public way more? Do you see the merits of that argument, Speaker, and what's your comment on it?
Well, that decision was made by that vaccination priority committee, and for me, I heard about it the next day in the media, right? However, the night before, we had just had an oversight hearing that asked about the prioritization committee. What were they looking at next? We talked about diabetes. Never did they mention, senators were the next priority. So that was news to me when I heard about it. I don't know their rationale, and I wish I did. If I knew the rationale, then I could address the rationale. So the decision itself, I just don't know. But, if they're trying to set an example, oh no, I think they did say rationale. I read rationale.
They said chain of, what is it? There were the art in the press conference. They said continuity of government, or
that's right. Continuity of government. I've heard that before. If something happens, we've got leadership to be in place. I don't know. I would just like to really see this vaccination, reach all the number first, of course. And I think they need to continue to prioritize that. They agreed, I thought, that we were going to prioritize the diabetes centers, the clinics, the dialysis centers. That had not happened at our last public hearing, and that's why I was questioning them about the priorities, how they had been set. Are we going to do GHRA employees before we do the diabetes clinics? And I was very happy that they decided, no, they were going to do the diabetes clinics first, right? They're very high risk of death. So from COVID. So those are the people who need to have this first. Now, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I did get my vaccination. I'm over 55. And so I did go do that. And my dad went, and he actually inspired me because I was, on the fence, but he was so enthusiastic about getting his vaccination. And I seen a lot of the Manamco are. And I feel like, well, for them, they want to get their lives back. They want to protect themselves. And that's the least that we can do is to protect them, is to also get our vaccine. So I always worry because, I go to work. I don't want to bring anything over to him. So
Right.
So
And I know, Speaker, like even with Senator Rogel, he's a caregiver for his parents. So there are senators who got the vaccine the regular way. So I'm not even sure how many senators got this from the vaccination committee saying, "Hey, we want to give you guys a shot." I don't know, but so you agree that we need to really go in and maybe shake up this priority listing for vaccinations.
yes, well, I tried to do that in the oversight hearing just to make sure what is their rationale. The committee is made up of mostly doctors and management from public health. So when I look at the committee, I trust that they're going to make the right decisions. But yeah, we're just not privy to, what their debate was during those times.
Speaker, we're kind of up on time, but I wanted to ask you real quick about GMH traveling nurses. I know that we had Lillian on, and she was saying that we're a little behind in payment to these traveling nurses. Are you aware we're having issues with FEMA reimbursements or anything for other agencies? And then what's your take on this travel nurses issue?
Well, from all accounts, that's something that will be reimbursed by FEMA unless something's changed. And it's probably just a matter of, the timing, the submission of the paperwork and getting the actual reimbursements. But I have not heard that it's a serious issue as if they're not going to pay at all. I think it's just a matter of this same thing with the overtime at public health, Chris, remember that? Same thing, they didn't submit the correct documents. Now we're waiting for DOA, some certain personnel to process them. It's government bureaucracy maybe, but no, I'm pretty sure that the payment's going to go through. We're facing very serious challenges, but I'm hoping that's not one of them. That reimbursement is going to happen. And they've ensured that when they brought these nurses on. But we're facing, it looks like, $100 million shortfall this fiscal year in the general fund. Our predictions are off, and the reality is much worse than what we thought back then. And that was after cutting $67 million, and now we're 100 million short of that prediction in the general fund alone. 25 million in the special funds. And I think we all are going to have to, reconcile everything we do with this reality of the shortfall. But the legislature is continuing to do a lot of work in different areas. I don't know if you saw the land bills that were also passed during this past session. There are several of them affecting the GLUC process, trying to make it more, accountable, quicker, and just to make sure that these government services are very much needed and that they are done as quickly as possible. We've got new bills introduced, 63 bills now. You saw the agricultural theft yesterday. You talked to Senator Rogel. We've got nurse pay. There's a hearing, I think today, on a nurse pay bill that I introduced to allocate money from a QC fee. It's over $1 million in QC fees that's going to be paid to GITA, and my bill is to allocate part of that money to GMH for the incentive pay that would bring them up to 22% increase. That makes them more comparable to national averages. So I'm hoping that would help in the retention of nurses at GMH.
All right.
We've got bills, regarding our borders, of course, extending building permits so that you don't have to go reapply for one it's a very short period of time, and that you have a year to use that building permit. And of course, others regarding land infrastructure, incentivizing commerce. And we've actually had so many oversight hearings and hearings on bills. I think almost every day they're cranking these hearings out, especially, for example, Senator Perez, Senator San Augustine, Senator Nelson, my own committee. Yeah, lots of
I like that. I like the oversight hearings way more than the informational hearings. Madam Speaker, we're out of time. But you know, if you still have
All
more
right.
to say, maybe we could get you on every week
Okay.
if you want. It's okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate it. And thanks for all the work that you're doing. And thank you, Jason, Sabrina, Chris. Take care.
Okay.
Have a good day,
You
Speaker.
you just get a good look at Jason because I don't know if he might be moving out of loop. It may be like the assistant digital engagement. Thank you, Madam Speaker. All right, there you go, Speaker Terlaje. Harvey comments in here, nurses paid late, but you can bet the new media director gets his 65 grand on time. Woo, boy. 8:07, we're going to take a break. To our viewers on KUAM TV, thank you guys so much for jamming with us. This is the link right here. My name is Chris. The Breeze, that's the radio station where the link is playing.